when you hit rock bottom, that is the moment. Like that is the sweet spot for any real deep transformative healing work. And that's what we're in this business for. So I love working with couples in the aftermath of infidelity.
We are so excited to speak today with an expert in affairs. She is a psychotherapist, coach, and trainer who has helped couples in therapy, groups, and retreats heal from betrayal. In addition, she has been part of one of the largest studies on infidelity. Trained in EMDR, emotion-focused couples therapy, somatic experiencing, and the Hakomi method, she has a private practice in New York. She is the founder and clinical director of Brooklyn Somatic Therapy and is also a trainer in the Hakomi method. We are so thrilled to introduce Rebecca Stone.
Welcome to lovely Rebecca Stone. So glad that you could be with us today.
Me too. So happy to see you both and to be here. Thank
likewise. So you have this specialty in affairs. You work with couples who have had affairs. You run these lovely retreats in Belize with couples who are healing from affairs. You have a viral TikTok account that provides education on affairs. So I think let's just start with the basics. Can you define what an affair is?
Sure. I think of an affair as any relationship that creates a triangle between a couple that's not consented by both parties. So it's like, I don't know how to exist within this dynamic with my one partner. I'm either going to have an emotional affair, an emotional and sexual affair, and or many affairs that kind of keep me from feeling the pain, the fear, whatever the wound is that's getting triggered by my dyad, and take the pressure off of the dyadic relationship in secret and in hiding.
Interesting. So would you describe affairs as always being a result of something that's avoided in the relationship?
Yes and no. I would say there's always a dynamic in a partnership. Everybody in a partnership, in a monogamous or non-monogamous partnership, that's really committed over the long term, struggles with hard dynamics and negative cycles. The difference between couples who are more vulnerable to cheating and non-vulnerable to cheating is one partner's typically avoidant attachment style that has them fearing that if they bring their needs and their feelings to their partner, they're going to get rejected, abandoned, unheard. And they don't even have the right to their needs and feelings to begin with because of childhood wounding and patterning. And so they try to stuff down their feelings and needs. And there's only so long that they can do that for before someone else comes their way that represents the kind of like outlet or expression of all the things that they're trying to push down. And that's the vulnerability, in my experience.
Yeah.
And in your experience working with people, I mean, I know a lot of people have reached out to you and around their experiences with affairs. How common is it to experience an affair, to be cheated on, or to be someone who is cheated?
It's so hard, like who knows which research study but according to some research studies, between 40 to 60% of relationships struggle with infidelity over at some point in the relationship. That is a very high number. And, I would say in a way, every relationship is vulnerable to some like slight form of an affair, right? Someone outside of the relationship makes us feel a certain way when we're struggling with our partner and it's confusing and we have a choice point. And the difference between the people that act on it and the people that don't is people who don't act on it say, this is significant information. I'm going to bring this to my partner. I'm going to resolve whatever issue is here that's causing this vulnerability in me. I'm going to fight for what I need in the relationship versus my partner doesn't want to hear from me anyway. I don't have the right to these needs. I don't have the right to feel this way. And so I'm going to stuff it and stuff it and stuff it until I cannot stuff it anymore. And then, there's this like fragmentation. It's really like a fragmented response. It's like I become a second person, a different person where I get to have needs out here.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And also that statistic I think would have shocked me maybe 10 years ago. But doing the work that we do and hearing more, even just in my peer relationships, it's like you realize how common affairs are. And maybe underlying it is really this crisis and being able to talk to our partners in effective ways because there's so much avoidance that happens. And something that, a question that came up as you were speaking. I mean, what you're describing is you notice a lot of the ways in which partners can't share their needs, and so they end up acting it out. Do you tend to see a lot of patterns in which the person who's having the affair tends to be more of the avoidant partner, the one who's pushing it down? And also, do you see a pattern of gender? I mean, I'm just thinking of sometimes like the stereotype of the kind of male avoidant.
Right.
Is that what you are noticing in the work that you're doing?
Definitely in terms of avoidant attachment style, that's what I see the most with the partner who has cheated. And, we all trained in EFT together. So we know like there's this thing called the burnt out pursuer, which is when someone who's really more anxiously attached in the relationship just gets burned out of continuing to protest and fight and becomes avoidant. So that's also possible. But I see much more that it's an avoidant attachment strategy that creates this whole cycle. And the people that find me to work with are primarily heterosexual partnerships where the man has cheated. Not always. Like I do work with women who have strayed, but it's in my own practice, it's a much smaller percentage. And I don't know that is indicative of the total numbers out there in the world. I mean, I know that the numbers are rising in terms of women who are cheating now, but I still don't really know how that compares, but by gender in terms of like percentages.
Right.
Currently.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could talk about, so there's couples or individuals reach out to you once the affair has surfaced, right? Once, it's an affair and it's out in the open. I wonder if you could talk about what's the impact of an affair before that happens, before the reveal. What do people talk about in terms of their experience when they're suspecting that there's an affair happening? Like, what does that do to a relationship? What does that do to the person who's experiencing the affair, but not really knowing if it's actually real or not?
So I think what nobody registers until post discovery is the level of trauma on the betrayed partner, how extreme it is, how painful it is. And part of the trauma is this feeling for usually a long period of time of like, something's not right. I have this paranoia. I ask my partner, is everything okay? Are we good? Are you, and they say, of course, I would never. I mean, some of them, like the stories that I hear, they swear on their children's lives, literally. I would never do this to you. I swear on our children's life. And so the level of gaslighting that happens and the way that the betrayed partner is basically over a long period of time trained to feel crazy and not to trust themselves is so extreme that that's usually the most damaging part of the entire infidelity trauma. Is like, how could you look me in the eyes and make me these promises? How could you make me feel crazy? How could you lie to me for this long? how could you celebrate our anniversary and have sex with me when you were calling them the same day? Like, it's so disorienting.
Yeah.
And they are trained pre-discovery to distrust every red flag and to be like, but my partner is trustworthy, but my partner loves me, but they're telling me no, but I must be insane. And so this rupture happens between the betrayed partner and themselves and their gut. And then they feel so angry at themselves for self-abandoning. And they feel like, how could it's my fault. How could I have missed this? How could I have, and that's a lot of the work that I do in the repair process, is like just help them forgive themselves, understand that this is a very natural reaction. Like, it's healthy and normal to trust the person that's supposed to be our number one person in the world, and to restore their connection to their gut and their intuition, and to feel proud of it, proud of themselves that they picked up that something wrong was happening.
Yeah, what you're saying is so important because, right, it's not just about the affair itself, it's the damage the lying does, not only to the way that they see their partner, like, are you the type of person that could look at me and lie to me, and questioning their morals and ethics, but also the damage to the relationship with themselves. And I mean, I love the way you're framing it as the work and healing is the relational work with the partner, but the relational work with themselves, like
Totally.
gaining that trust back in themselves. And that's very deep and very profound.
It is. It's really beautiful, powerful work. And it's actually like one of the problems that I have with the couples therapy world is that nobody talks about infidelity as an individual healing pathway. Like, it's all about, there's a negative cycle in the couple's relationship, and you go to couples therapy and you work on infidelity recovery, and it's just magically supposed to sort itself out. But there's so much individual trauma.
Yeah.
One of my colleagues, Dr. Kathy Nickerson, has coined the term post-infidelity stress disorder. Like, serious PTSD symptoms develop for the betrayed partner. And until those are addressed and healed, and until the relationship to self is repaired, there can be no relational couples work. Like, it's just too hard. And anytime that a couples therapist says, well, this is the negative cycle, where was the vulnerability in the relationship? The betrayed partner, for good reason, hears that as blame. Like, if I weren't enough, if I'd caught it sooner, like, I'm being blamed for the affair, which exacerbates all of their deepest fears. Like, that's what the affair has done to them. If I were better, if I were more attractive, if I were more lovable, I wouldn't be replaced.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
And it's not actually true. It's not what happened. Like, people don't do this if there's only a relationship dynamic issue. They do it if there's a relationship dynamic issue and they don't have the tools to self-regulate and advocate for their needs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's a great point. Can you talk a little bit about the experience of the person who's having the affair? So you talked about the person who's getting betrayed. What's it like for the person doing this affair, even before maybe they've been discovered and lying and in some ways gaslighting? Like, because you work with these people too. What's their experience? What's it like for them to do this?
So it's so interesting because everybody culturally, we all think about affairs as like hot and like, just like people are overcome with desire and it's amazing, like sex, and they just can't say no. And that is so rarely the way that it gets reported to me in the aftermath. It's often reported to me as like, I did this transaction. Like, the sex was transactional and I gave it to my affair partner to get certain emotional needs met. And sometimes it was fun and sexy, and a lot of times I felt disgusting and I felt ashamed. And a lot of the couples that come to work with me say, we had incredible sex lives. Like, this makes no sense because there was no issue with sex. And it makes so much sense that this is not really about sex. It's about using sex to get certain emotional needs met. and to feel a certain kind of connection or a certain kind of validation. And so the people, the partners that I work with who have cheated say I was in torment. I was losing weight. I was losing sleep. I was on Ativan. I mean, I felt so guilty, and it was so hard to keep up this double life. And I was so confused. And a lot of times what happens in order to like self justify what they're doing is they start to really split. So the affair partner is like the all good being, and then their real partner gets devalued and they start getting really mean to their current partner, and they pick fights with their current partner, and they turn their current partner into someone who is really restricting them, like limiting them, keeping them small and stuck. And the affair partner is like this dream partner that sees them in all the ways and gives them everything that they never had. And it's the way that they make peace with the choice.
Yeah. They're kind of projecting their own inner
Exactly.
demons onto
Exactly.
their own partner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like all of their self-loathing that they don't know how to face, they project onto their partner, and they say, this person's going to save me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they've spent so long disowning their needs and feeling like such a problem.
I'm curious how that transforms, like once the discovery happens, what usually happens to the cheating partner in that moment? With some of the couples that I've worked with, there seems to be a shift, like suddenly like a wake up call, like, oh no, actually, wait a minute. I want to save this marriage. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be coming to couples therapy. And so it's interesting, but it's exactly that narrative that you talk about where they've seen their partner as the demon or like the bad one or before that discovery. So it's like there's some shift that suddenly happens when there's this wake up.
Totally. So yeah, usually when the wake up happens, everything comes crashing down. Sometimes it does not come crashing down until the partner threatens to leave. Like sometimes they can't end it. They're still in the triangulation. They're still in limerence with the affair partner. They continue to hold this black and white narrative. And only when the betrayed partner says, I'm out, like face your shit, without me, without using me as the demon, then it can come crashing down. And they say, whoa. And sometimes it never comes crashing down. And they repeat the pattern over and over and over again because they don't know how to face. But I have seen a lot of times, like in the aftermath of the discovery, it's like kind of like a slow to fast crash, like a matter of days or weeks. And then all of a sudden they're like, what was I doing? This person means nothing to me.
How does the discovery typically happen? Because I hear so often it's like the person who's experiencing the affair discovers it and then brings it to their partner's attention, right? It's like they're caught red-handed. Yeah. And then in the therapy, there's so much of this piece around, if I didn't catch you, you would have continued to do it. Or you're feeling guilty because you were caught. And are you actually feeling guilty because you were doing this act?
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if you can speak to that, and if that's a typical pattern, or if often you see people who are self-disclosing their affair.
It's so typical, and it's one of the main causes for the betrayed partner to stick with this core belief that's like he doesn't or she doesn't really love me. They never actually chose me. If I hadn't discovered, they'd still be doing this. That's their choice. That's who they really want. And, in my work, the work is all about helping the betrayed partner with those underlying fears and beliefs before they actually turn to their partner who cheated to ask for clarity. Because anything that the cheating partner says, which is like, no, I do love you. I was hiding it because I didn't want to hurt you and I didn't know how to get out. And of course I thought about getting out, but I just didn't know how, like none of that means anything when the brain is only looking for the holes in what they're saying and trying to prove you don't really love me. You don't really love me. You don't really love me. And that, to me, it's like that requires individual work. That is individual trauma healing first until the partner has enough self-love and enough healing to be able to hear what their partner's actually saying, which is like, my love for you, typically what I've seen, my love for you never went away. This was never about love. This was about validation hits. This was about escaping pain and self-soothing. We were in a hard time and I was scared that you were going to leave me. I was scared that you were going to abandon me. I always felt like I wasn't good enough for you, whatever it was. And I couldn't come to you because I didn't believe that I had the right. And I didn't believe that anybody would care to respond to my pain. Forget about you, anybody, given my own childhood wounding. And so I was doing this thing. It never actually took away my love for you. What it did was help me feel like a worthwhile human. I was using somebody to feel like a worthwhile human. And when you caught it, it came crashing down and I had to face how fragmented I was being and how insane. And now I can see it. Does that resonate for you too in terms of what you hear in your practices?
I mean, I really love that you do the individual work before even thinking about doing the couples work, because it really, in my experience, does not make sense to bring a couple in when they're both really raw.
Yeah.
And they can't hear each other. So it really resonates what you're saying, especially the person who's been cheated on.
Right.
It's like they're still in a traumatized state.
Yeah.
And they get flooded very easily.
Right.
And I've experienced that sometimes what can happen is the person who's been cheated on gets flooded.
Yes.
You know, if they're feeling triggered by something, they have a memory, there's something their partner says. And then the partner who really wants the relationship kind of gets paralyzed, feels helpless, feels like, well, wait a minute, maybe they don't want me, maybe they don't want this relationship actually. And in some sense, it can just inflame a negative cycle in a way where it can't be repaired until that individual work is done. So that certainly resonates a lot. I think that's a really
100%. Yeah, I love that. And I think also for the cheating partner, and you had asked this, too, is like, so they have all of this fear of abandonment, of rejection. I mean, if we think about the research on avoidant attachment and what we know, it's that avoidantly attached kids are the ones who actually cried the most in school. They're not the ones who cried the least. They cried the most. They were the most difficult in terms of sensitivity and upset. And they learned over time that nobody was actually going to help them regulate, that they were too difficult for people, that nobody was coming, that, all of their caregivers were just so overwhelmed that they had to not only stop crying, but disown all feelings. And what they made up about themselves in terms of negative beliefs is there is something fundamentally flawed about who I am. My needs are so terrible. And if anybody sees them, they will leave me.
It's such a helpful framework to understand the cheating partner, both in a way that I think as a therapist to cultivate compassion, as people who have been cheated on to understand, right? Because it's so hard to understand where this person is coming from. And it's so easy to take it so personally. There's something wrong with me.
Totally.
But I completely resonate, especially when you talk about the cheating partner, that every cheating partner that I've worked with has had incredibly low self-esteem.
Yeah.
An incredibly low sense of self.
Right.
And so much of the work is actually the relationship to themselves. That you need to do the repair. And this really speaks to the kind of individual work. But they need to also be able to think of themselves in more positive regard, to be able to hear the anger and hurt and upset from their partner. Because if they're in a place of shame, which is oftentimes when I start to work with couples, it's like they're berating themselves so much that they can't even take in what their partner is trying to share with them.
Exactly. And that's why they're so bad at helping their partner soothe. First of all, they never learned how to self-soothe. That's the
Yeah.
problem with the avoidance strategy. They don't get the external soothing to help them internalize what soothing feels like, which is why they did this thing to begin with. They're seeking external soothing, and they're not allowed to turn to their partner because it's too risky and vulnerable. And they're already in shame. Like it's the shame that causes the cheating. Now their partner has found out the truth about them, according to the cheating partner's deepest fear, which is, I am so fundamentally terrible as a human being. Like, not only are my needs going to get me abandoned, I devastated and caused the worst trauma to the person that I love the most. What is wrong with me? It's so painful. It makes me cry to think about like the level of trauma also for the cheating partner and what they're up against in terms of self-hatred, and
Yeah.
totally confused about what they've done. Like they have no idea how or why they could do this. And part of the reason that they don't understand why is that they're so fragmented and dissociated from their feeling state that they're not allowed to know themselves in a deep way until they find me. I mean, my clients, to do this deeper work with, they've never done deep work on themselves.
Yeah.
They're just trying to not feel. And so working with the shame and helping them, I do a lot of, reclaiming the inner child and like helping them with self-compassion and helping them love their vulnerable, needy part before we do anything else. And also really helping them understand, like, you're not bad. Everybody who's in a blind spot around their trauma acts out in different ways. And this was the way that you did it. But you're not a bad person, and it doesn't mean anything about your character. What matters is how you respond once you're confronted with the blind spot. Do you continue to do it? Do you choose to stay blind, or do you choose to heal and repair with the people that you harmed?
Hi, LoveLink listeners. Our group practice, Modern Mind, is located in New York City with offices in Brooklyn and Manhattan, offering in-person and virtual psychotherapy. We provide individual, couples, and group therapy, as well as ketamine-assisted psychotherapy in conjunction with a psychiatry prescriber. Therapy is a powerful experience that can transform your life and help you live it to its full potential. We're here to help take you where you want to go. To find out more about our practice, visit www.modernmind.co or email info@modernmind.co to be connected with one of our therapists.
So once you've done the individual work with each partner, what is the work when you then bring them together? And how do you know when it's time to start doing the couples work?
So it really varies by couple, because the way that I do it is I have two different groups going, one for the betrayed partner, one for the cheating partner. And they're like the individual roadmaps that we just talked about. After that, couples can choose to do the couples work with me, in couples sessions, or sometimes they have a couples therapist and this individual work just kind of helps with that. But the ideal thing is to do the group with me and then to come to the retreat, because on the retreats, we do 3 hours of individual work in the morning and then facilitated couples conversations in the afternoon. So every morning, when each individual is doing their work, they're then coming together to share. And it's like the perfect recipe and so powerful. And so much shifts in the course of 5 days on the retreats.
How do you help couples build trust? And it's kind of a big question, and I'm sure it's a complicated answer, but so many couples, once this affair happens, it's like that trust is completely eroded. And a lot of partners who've been cheated on say, how can I ever trust this person again?
Yeah.
So how do you help couples sort of build that together?
I think it's a multifaceted issue. So the first part is that, like we talked about for the betrayed partner, The thing that breaks for them is their own self-trust and the fact that they let it go on when they knew something was wrong. And so part of the like, how am I ever supposed to trust again, is that now they feel like their radar has been broken. So their amygdala is just hijacked. And they don't know how to differentiate between real threat and not real threat anymore. Because for such a long time, they were minimizing the red alert signal that was going off. And so now they're terrified to ever not be in red alert. And they're just much more hypervigilant. So to me, that's like a betrayed partner separate healing thing. We have to teach them to learn that they can trust themselves, that they will know when something's off again, that they don't have to always be in red alert and they don't have to take all their trust away. And like they did know, they knew that it was off. So if their gut tells them that something's off now, that's how they know that they can't trust. You know, as opposed to like the trust is gone and you have to rebuild back from zero. And the cheating partner has a lot of proving themselves. And to me, that doesn't just look like, you know, you give me phone access. It looks like you have to prove that the wound that got you into this mess is getting healed. And that looks like showing me that your avoidance strategy is changing, that you come to me with your feelings, that you come to me with your needs, that you have insight into the why. You know, a lot of cheating partners, because they're avoidantly attached and all, you know, they have this strategy from childhood, they're so fragmented. So they understand that something was happening in the relationship. They kind of understand what their childhood wounding was. They cannot connect the dots. And connecting the dots and having a complete, coherent narrative is essential for them and for their partner to understand this is what it was and it's nothing else. It's not about their love. It's not about their desire. It's about their trauma spin. And when the trauma spin is seen and addressed and healed, there's no more vulnerability in the relationship. And the betrayed partner needs to see, like, my partner has started to come to me with their feelings and their needs and their upsets and their fears. My partner now knows how to self-regulate. They don't tank in shame when I'm upset. Like, even that rebuilds trust. Because the betrayed partner knows if I send them into shame, that puts them at risk. So they have to learn to self-soothe and self-regulate. They have to have insight into their patterns. They have to come and communicate needs. And that is a different partnership. That is starting from scratch. That's rebuilding the foundation into secure attachment, which, in many ways, what my couples report to me is like something that they never fully had. And so then when it feels like you're rebuilding something that's a much stronger foundation, it's easy to feel trust and proud and like, okay, this shit show that we just went through is really strengthening us and we trust it.
Yeah. And that they can start addressing the problems in their relationship, not from a traumatized place, but from more of an adult, healthy place.
Right.
Right. Because it sounds like a lot of times there is relationship problems, but the person who's cheating doesn't know how to talk about it. It builds up, makes all of these beliefs and narratives around why this is happening that's about themselves, right? And so they're not even able to tackle it. And when you're able to kind of shore the cheating partner up, shore the person who's been cheating on up, then they can actually start working on some of these things in a constructive way.
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the work on the couples retreat is like helping partners really get to know their exiled child part, like the wounded child, to take care of the wounded child, to be the one that fights for them and protects them, and then to have conversations from their adult parts.
Yeah.
I imagine there's something also really beautiful about having multiple couples on these retreats at the same time, because that also has a way of reducing these shame feelings, right? Like we're all in this together.
That's why my preference, exactly. That's why my preference is to do all of this work in groups. I think it speeds up the healing so much to destigmatize for both partners. Like the cheating partners look around and they're like, I'm with all these good people who feel so bad about themselves. Like, I must not be that bad. And the betrayed partner too, like I'm with all of these lovable humans that did not deserve to get cheated on. They're beautiful, they're strong, they're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'm also beautiful, strong, and awesome.
That's huge. That's healing in of itself.
Right.
Yeah. So, Rebecca, you do these retreats that are a week long, but then you also run these groups too.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the groups?
Yeah, so the groups are virtual, and I have a group for the cheating partner and a group for the betrayed partner, and we basically do group EMDR together. And it's highly structured. And my retreats are also heavy on the EMDR and other somatic and experiential techniques. I run the retreats with my husband, but the groups are like pre-recorded content structured thematically by the kind of everything that we're talking about, like the trauma of gaslighting, the negative beliefs from childhood, understanding how the infidelity is layering on to our already existing wounds and causing us to believe things about ourselves that need to be addressed by going back to the root first. We have to heal the childhood wounds before we look at the infidelity with clear eyes. For the betrayed partner, and then for the cheating partner, it's all about looking at our avoidant attachment wounding, understanding where it comes from in childhood, going back and offering that child the missing experience and missing information that they needed to understand, then working with shame, looking at where we learned to hide and lie. Lying and hiding it's a survival strategy. People don't just lie and hide for the first time in an affair. They build up the capacity to do it over time by needing to do it to stay in relationship because of their fear. Like if they see me as bad, they'll leave me. So I have to be who they need me to be. So we kind of tackle all of these themes by week, and then we do group EMDR together.
Can you explain to our listeners what exactly that is and what does that look like in a group?
Yeah, so it's really fun, but EMDR is the evidence-based trauma healing modality, and it's been proven specifically for infidelity to be very effective. I do it in a group setting. So because everybody's kind of working on a similar issue, I have everybody set up the target that they're working on, let's say related to the gaslighting, the healing from gaslighting. So everyone in the groups, sets up what they're going to work on that week. They chat it in the chat because we're meeting virtually. And then I say, okay, good. Like, see the picture, feel the feelings in the body sensations, say that negative belief from this memory or this image, and tap. And we use bilateral stimulation, which is butterfly tapping, which is just one way that you can use what's called bilateral stimulation to basically get the brain moving and the body desensitized to traumatic stimulus. And they all do it together. And then I pause them and we share either like a go round share, or they'll just chat into the chat where they are. And then I say, okay, keep going with that. And they all go back inside and they tap. But the shares are so powerful. And I really believe that they unstick people very quickly because you're hearing like, this person on the call with you being like, and then I went to my abusive mother and my angel archetype came in and said to my mom, get your hands off her. And like you're hearing this other person go through this deep kind of like healing and core belief rescripting in this memory. And it's so empowering that then you're like, oh, I can do that, and so then the next round you're like, I told my mom to fuck off, or like I had my grandma come in and take me out of that scene. And so it's like there's something about the resilience of the group that just becomes contagious, and that's why I love it so much.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'd never heard of group EMDR. It sounds very powerful.
I'm sure other people are doing it. I never learned it that way. I just kind of made it up and do it my way, but it's really awesome. And I love it.
In general, I feel like there needs to be more group work in psychotherapy. It's the most healing of all the modalities. Yeah.
I really
It's so
agree.
healing, and but it's also so hard to start
I know.
groups. I think so many people are hesitant to join a group, even though when they do, there's a real powerful aspect to it. But I think people feel uncomfortable sharing with strangers.
I
There's
know.
like a stigma around group, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult
Totally.
to get them
Yeah.
started.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, what do you think is the most important factor in preventing infidelity? If we don't go back to childhood, because that would be ideal.
Right,
We could,
right,
redo
right,
those
right.
experiences. But
Yeah.
in a committed relationship,
I think both partners learning to take responsibility for their own dysregulation. And the avoidant partner thinks that that's what they're doing by saying, I'm just going to not bring this. But that's not really taking responsibility. That's disowning and repressing. Like I think so many partnerships go through these like growth spurts and like growing pains around what do I have the right to need from you versus what do I have to kind of handle on my own. And it's confusing. And like our language about secure attachment, I think in a way makes it even more confusing. Like, well, if you were giving me everything I needed, I wouldn't feel this way. If you were really my secure attachment figure, I wouldn't have to feel so sad or anxious or, lonely. And because we're not taught to take responsibility for our wounded children inside, and we don't really know how to do that, we get into these big messes, these negative cycles, not everybody cheats, everybody uses the phone to distract and distance from relational distress, and other addictions, like whatever it is. When I feel dysregulated and disconnected, I get really into like my Facebook and Instagram, like shopping ads. I mean, they know me so well. And like, because we're not, I was never taught how to like really take care of my vulnerable self and trust that I can meet my own needs. And so I think if partners learn how to do that and say like, here's what I'm responsible for, and then here's what my partner's responsible for, I can still expect them to attune to me, to be present with me, to be emotionally available. But when I come to them, I'm talking to them from my adult self. I'm the one taking care of my child. My child is never actually directly in conversation with my partner. I'm not going to let myself be in a triggered state and in direct conversation. I'm attending to myself in my triggered state first. And then I'm mediating a conversation between my child and my partner. I, adult self, am always there. If that were happening, affairs wouldn't happen.
Yeah. And that is such hard work, but such
The
powerful work.
hardest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, in some ways, as awful as affairs are and can have a real damaging and cause a lot of destruction in relationships, they're also this beautiful opportunity to end the relationship you had with your partner and start a new one that really like excavates and digs deep and provides this kind of transformative way of relating to yourself and then as a result relating with your partner. Like I have actually found that interestingly, most of the couples that I've worked with who have had affairs, if not all of them, have worked through it, have
That's
gotten to the
beautiful.
other side.
Yeah.
I think but I think that's actually quite common if the
Yeah.
couples do the work.
Yeah.
But I think there's an assumption sometimes that affairs destroy a relationship and that's it, or it ends in a breakup. But I think more often than not, couples really want to make it work, but it's hard work and you're having to actually face things that were easier to avoid. And so, yeah,
Totally.
it's like a little bit of like a red alert, like a wake up call.
mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, rather than this sort of maybe low level dysfunction in the relationship that maybe can get overlooked and continue going, it's kind of like it blows everything up and both
Totally.
partners are having to confront everything.
Yes. And that's why I love it so much because,
Yeah.
I don't like working with low levels of dysfunction. It's boring and nobody's motivated to change.
Mm,
Yeah.
Like there's just
Totally.
not there's
Totally.
just not enough motivation. It's like things are good enough. Like it's not great,
Yeah.
but like you're
Yeah.
telling me to change? Fuck you.
right.
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
when you hit rock bottom, that is the moment. Like that is the sweet spot for any real deep transformative healing work. And that's what we're in this business
Yeah.
for. So I
Yeah.
love working with couples in the aftermath of infidelity so much because of what you're saying. It has the most potential for high impact transformation.
The most
Totally.
professionally
Totally.
satisfying too.
Exactly.
Right.
Totally.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
so happy that you
Yeah.
feel that way too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there any, as we kind of wrap up, this was so helpful and so useful, and I just love, Rebecca, the way you frame everything. There's like a kind of beauty to it, and it's really going deep. It's not staying at the surface, which I think is so critical in this type of work. We've covered a lot, but if is there any other piece of advice that you would give to couples, maybe early on in their
Yeah.
process? Yeah, what would be helpful for them?
I think the piece of advice that I would want to give is to the betrayed partner, because I know what kind of hell they're in and what they're going through. And what typically happens in the aftermath is that the couple is thrown into a disorganized attachment cycle where the betrayed partner is like seeking safety, connection, something from the partner who has just cheated on them. The partner who's just cheated is trying really hard to like help alleviate their anxiety and their pain and to like make it better. And the second that they do that, the betrayed partner is thrown into even more of a spin. They discount everything that they're hearing. They're enraged, like nothing works, and they keep trying the same thing, but their attachment system is on high alert, and the person they're seeking safety from has become inherently unsafe. And so my advice is stop turning to them right now and do your own work. Heal yourself. The trauma is now inside of your own body and your own attachment system. And until you can feel more in control of your nervous system, nothing they say matters.
Mm,
Hmm.
that's great advice.
Yeah, I love that. Love
So,
that.
and it's not fair, it's not fair advice. It's like, of course, like what I see is so many times the betrayed partner is like, you broke it, you fix it. You broke me, so fix me. Do something that's
Yeah.
going to make this go away. But that's not how trauma works. Like once it's in our own bodies, it's our responsibility.
Mm.
Mm.
And the trauma needs to get healed before the relationship can repair, period.
I think it's a very hopeful message too, because a person who's been cheated on feels so out of control.
Right.
But it's like, no, okay, this is in your control.
Exactly. Exactly.
To take care of yourself.
Right. It's so empowering.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You're not dependent on them to say the right thing. You heal you no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it also takes some humility. I think after being humiliated, there's all this anger and rage and this expectation and wanting that person to fix them, as you said. And it really, it takes a lot of sort of working through the ego, working through the rage to say, you know what, I'm really going to turn towards myself. And it's not so useful to turn to this person right now in the ways that maybe I wanted to or have done in the past.
100%. Yeah, humility and like so much emotional maturity. I mean, we're asking the betrayed partner to be so much more emotionally mature than the partner who just cheated on them, but it's the only way to heal,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how can people find you or join these groups or go on your retreats?
So you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, where I post, daily nuggets of wisdom. And you can also look up affairrecoverycoach.com, which is where you can look at my offerings, learn about my retreats and my free workshops and, like online courses, and then my groups and retreats also.
Great.
This was really helpful.
Yeah, such an enlightening conversation.
Oh,
So
thank
great
you.
to speak with you.
Ditto. Loved it. Your clients are lucky.